Hey, what's up, History Gang? We're the ones who click the video because there's roses in the title. Shout out to the Swifties. Welcome back to the Wars of the Roses. You're about to get the juiciest medieval drama since the knights who fought over who had fancier helmet feathers. We'll fill you in later. So, in our last episode, we covered all the Lancaster and York lore, leading all the way up to Margaret's alley-oop on Richard. Today we're diving even further into the Wars of the Roses, which, as you know by now, is basically the toxic family group chat where instead of passive-aggressive texts, they send armies, for real. But if you haven't seen part 1 yet, go ahead and get up to speed. We'll be here. And if you're new here, welcome to Chronos History, where we break down the greatest moments in history and turn them into the greatest stories. Whether you're curious, bored, or somewhere in between, we've got something cooked up for you to keep you going. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. Right, so first things first, let's get you a little recap of the events right up to where we left off. The Plantagenet dynasty started it all, led by King Edward II. They played the ranked Clash of Clans IRL and then started a war that lasted a freaking century. After the 100 Years' War, England goes, hey, maybe we should follow up this massive war with another massive war. Genius, right? Well, that's the houses of Lancaster and York for ya. Two branches of the same royal family that said, nope, we're not sharing the throne. Sharing is for peasants. Evidently, they couldn't agree on who the rightful king should be, and it led them to one of the things that medieval factions really relied on to make their case. And that was violence. And so, Richard, Duke of York, aka Team White Rose Goat, squabbled up and initiated the First Battle of St. Albans. Imagine it as the first punch thrown in a bar fight. To be fair, he only did it after he got kicked from the server, which was by Queen Margaret, aka Boss Lady. See, they didn't really get along, and that was just the beginning of their problems. The road laid out for these two is as rocky as the one dude in the Marvel movies with the Aussie accent. Anyway, Richard won that first battle and took control of things for a bit within Parliament. But after mad back and forth conflict and a big loss from Team Red Rose, Margaret locked in and served Richard of York the Queen's Gambit. Lil Bro got turned into a spectator and was left to none other than his son to step up and keep their battle royale hopes alive. So there you have it, the gist of part 1. The adventure into pure chaos, all because we had way too many kids. Well, our journey into the next phase of keeping up with the Plantagenets begins back in London with, you guessed it, more war. Okay, with our guy Richard out of the picture, you might be wondering, is that really it for the House of York? Will the White Rose Squad ever get another chance to rule England? Well, the battle ahead had significant implications for the future of England. And the short answer is that the Yorkists are about to become Super Bowl champions. But the long answer is that no team has ever gotten that far without their all-pro quarterback. This story begins with Richard's son, Edward Plantagenet, aka Certified Dart Slinger. Now, I know you're probably thinking, hold up, Edward Plantagenet? Isn't that the same last name as the OG king from before all this? Well, you'd be absolutely right. And that's because his father Richard and his mother Cecily were both direct descendants of King Edward III, the guy who built the English Empire. Many people thought Edward's claim to the throne was greater than that of the Red Rose Henry and Queen Margaret. At the age of 18, he inherited his late father's titles and then set his sights on the throne. Get yourself ready for a hold my beer moment. Edward was about to slay, literally and metaphorically. So look, this guy had aura, that much is clear. The remaining Yorkist supporters saw the vibes and the strategic ability, and with it he rallied the squad back together. Fueled by his vengeance, he led this new army toward London, and soon began the Battle of Mortimer's Cross. After a massive victory back in Wakefield in 1460, Queen Margaret of Anjou led her army toward London with the hopes of reclaiming the city. Sure, she was the biggest baddie in part 1, but let's be real, in a sequel, no one's safe. This right here is part 2. You see, Margaret was at a major disadvantage. Why? Well, because her army, while sizable, was honestly pretty mid. They were low-key the definition of disorganized. And remember, this army came from the mud. They weren't all elite warriors. And of course, Edward was on his way over with a bigger and more formidable army. The real party started when Margaret split up the groups and sent a piece of the army to take over nearby territory. Led by Owen and Jasper Tudor, these little dogs had no idea what they were walking into. In early 1461, the Tudors and Edward pulled up to a place called Mortimer's Cross, a crossroads on an open plain. At that moment, something unfamiliar appeared, a parhelion, which you might know as a sundog. It's that thing that creates an illusion of three suns in the sky. Now, what does that have to do with the fight? Well, as the Lancastrians were getting pretty pictures on their iPhone 5s, Edward interpreted the three suns as a divine message. He said, "Bet, that's like the Holy Trinity or something. Time to win, I guess," and he started devising a plan of attack. Remember when I said he had good strategy? Yeah, well, he flanked the Tudors and pretty much embarrassed them right on the spot. In the end, both Owen and Jasper Tudor were captured, and Edward decided to send Owen to the Gulag. For those of you that don't know, that means Owen was forced to leave the chat permanently. Thanks to the victory royale, Edward's reputation took flight, and the Yorkist army gained mad momentum. And now the only thing standing between him and taking over the throne for good was Queen Margaret and King Henry. And let me just say, get ready, because things are about to go down. After the Battle of Mortimer's Cross, Edward rolls into London to meet his dad's old friends, who held it down for him while he was away. They pretty much said, screw the other guy, this man is just better, and the Yorkist supporters crowned him as king. As you can imagine, King Henry and his friends were not totally stoked, so they got active and started pressing London. I hear you. Another battle, my goodness. But the thing is, this battle was just different. There were 40,000 Red Rose soldiers and 30,000 White Rose. This was a 3-hour brawl near the town of Towton that could have made headlines on Daily Mail. Despite being vastly outnumbered and having to endure the chaos of multiple front lines, Edward emerged as an absolute stud. This man led the team like LeBron in the finals, and after repelling a nearly successful flank attack, he launched one of his own that led to the collapse of the whole larger Lancastrian army. I mean, this was ugly. The Red Rose lost 2/3 of their army, lost their commanders, and both Henry and Margaret barely survived, fleeing to Scotland. Edward was formally crowned as king, and the Yorkists finally created the dynasty that they dreamed of for so long. It's safe to say that Edward and his friends had won the championship game. After all they've been through, Henry and Margaret had officially lost everything. Like Bonnie and Clyde, would they go out with a bang? Would they somehow pick up the pieces and reclaim what was once theirs? Or would they live out the rest of their lives in the shadow of King Edward, the young duke who rose up against all odds? Well, in the 4 years after their defeat, Henry and Margaret held on to whatever there was left for the Lancastrians. Some northern territories continued to believe in Henry, at least until King Edward struck a deal with the King of Scotland. Henry had nobody left, and he was forced to live in hiding within the forests of England, while his wife fled to France with their children. Eventually, Edward's forces captured Henry for the final time. He was taken back to London and imprisoned in the Tower of London, where he would remain for several years. And at this point, don't you just feel bad for our boy Henry? Sure, he wasn't the greatest leader, or fighter, or negotiator, but underneath that crown was a man who had a good heart. He just wanted the best for his people, and it tore him apart when he couldn't give them everything. Hey, maybe there was someone out there who could lead England to places he never could. But did he deserve all this? To be battled, captured, imprisoned multiple times? Yeah, the medieval era was not one for the faint of heart. Although Edward was pretty much the head honcho now, he went through a nasty breakup with his father's old friend, Richard Neville. This dude even went as far as contacting his arch enemy, Margaret of Anjou, to team up with her and the French to overthrow King Edward. For a while, they were actually quite successful, even taking over London and sending our boy Edward on his merry way. And there they were, thinking everything was finally over and that they had won. That is, until Edward showed up on the doorstep with another army. And they had a huge problem, because clearly Edward just doesn't lose. And this was basically the season finale of the whole royal drama. A lot happened, but long story short, Edward wins, Margaret gets captured, and her son meets a tragic end. Richard Neville is unalived, and Edward is king of everything once again. See, what did I tell you about this guy? This is like the best rookie season of all time. He literally defeated everyone. And with no one left to oppose him, the future was finally bright for the White Roses. But hey, what about Henry? Well, let's just say the Tower of London wasn't exactly a 5-star hotel for him. His tragic story finally ended in 1471, leaving Edward IV as the one true undisputed king. And to top it off, his death marked the end of the Lancastrian line. Talk about a season finale. So, what have we learned today? Well, family drama never ends well. Divine signs are great for morale, and if you're gonna be a king, you better make sure your army is on point. In the next and last video dedicated to the Wars of the Roses, we will finally uncover all of the secrets and witness an ending, well, let's just say with a plot twist. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more historical drama. And drop a comment if you think you could survive medieval politics. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.